Welcome back all. Good afternoon. I hope we enjoyed a lovely bit of food there. We're going to be kicking off our afternoon session with Mr. Simon Pickard, who's going to be talking to us a little bit around AI-infused transformations and how it helped to revolutionise an Australian bank.
Thank you. Hi everybody. Thanks for coming along. I'm not sure who's giving out freebies on the door, but there's something made you all come in, so thank you very much. Great to see some familiar faces in the audience as well. Some folks who I haven't seen in quite a long time, and some who I see every day, unfortunately. Anyhow, right. So today I'm going to be talking about what we are doing and have done in an Australian bank, and how we've used a little bit of AI to help us on our journey. What I'm also going to talk about is how we had to really think about things quite differently. Yeah, to be able to get in and do this as a challenge for the bank. I'm going to look at some of the processes and some of the tools that we've been using, what the key drivers were for the bank and for the business to actually do this in the first place, and some of the benefits that are being realized and the targets that we've got, and also some of the techniques that we're using to deliver those benefits, and all of this with an eye on AI and how it's changing what we are doing and how we actually operate. Most importantly, I want to leave you all with some questions and some thoughts and stuff that you can take away and actually really think about how you can apply this to your organizations where you are at the moment, and how we can harness the passion that we've all got as testers and how we can help our business. So a little bit first about me. I've been around testing for quite a while now, testing and quality engineering. Well over 25 years. I've been on both sides of the fence in commercial organizations as head of quality engineering and testing, and also working for extremely large consultancies, IBM, and also a lot smaller consultancies such as Innovo right now. Just a little bit about Innovo. We are a test consulting company. We look at things a little bit different, okay? So we've got a slightly different take on how we do things. We've got an ethos of automate first. So every single thing that we want to be doing in organizations is with automation. We offer a broad spectrum of quality engineering services, from large-scale transformation, such as what I'm going to talk about now, through to pure play consultant advise, go in and help people come up with a roadmap of what it is that they need to do, and also hardcore program test delivery itself, along with everything wrapped into a service. So that's just a little bit about Innovo. There are a couple of seats up the front if anybody really wants one. So I'm going to start with this. Anybody recognize this? Has anybody got one of these? Is anybody going to admit they're as old as me? One at the back there. Another one there. Excellent. Good, good. Mercury Certified Professional, Mercury Educational Services. I think this is from back in around about 2001, maybe 2002, can't quite remember. I found it a few weeks ago whilst shuffling around in the office trying to come across something, and I came across it and I felt slightly proud because it took me back on a journey to when I actually did this. Now, as I say, this was back just on the turn of the century. Things were a little bit different. It was a 4-hour paper exam in the Mercury offices at Camberley, yeah, where you actually had to go in, sit with one of their laptops, do some exercises, and answer a bunch of questions on a proper exam paper. Yeah? None of this, online, web-based, multiple-choice questions. This was like being back at school. And I think, I don't know if you can read that there, but it was Load Runner 7.6 and Test Director 7.5. I'm pretty sure I failed the Wind Runner one. I'm just going to say that. Yeah, I hated functional testing. Anyhow, so I really did feel slightly proud about it, and it kind of got me thinking. Into about what I wanted to talk about today and the kind of messages that I wanted to get across. Cameron was saying a lot of this in his introduction. Yeah, we are a very passionate bunch of people. Yeah. The job that we do, yeah, we're all very, very talented at it. We all have to help the businesses we're in, and we're very, very passionate about what it is that we do with that, yeah? And we care deeply about that. We do. That's why we're all here. That's why we've all got careers in quality engineering and testing, yeah? But this is the hitch, okay? Right? We care deeply about it. Not everybody else does, right? And there is the problem, right? That's something that we've got to try and address. Major stakeholders in organizations in general don't give two hoots whether I went and did that in 2001 and 2002. They don't care about that. They think very, very differently, yeah? They're interested in the outcomes and the costs for their business, yeah? And they expect it all just to work. So, you know, let's be absolutely honest with each other here, yeah? We work in an industry which is quite boring. We work in testing. Testing is boring, right? Full stop. How many times have you been in a room, you've been talking about test results, defects, maybe even coverage, and you've just seen people's eyes glaze over? Yep. Not really interested. Yeah. It's true, that happens. We're quite often seen as a blocker. Yeah, we're quite often seen as something at the end of the cycle, which just has to be there because somebody made it up in a methodology. Okay, maybe that's a little bit extreme, but we are often seen as a blocker and a cost, yeah, and a cost center, which is a problem. The business think different. First question, is anybody from the business in the room? I just want to get this clear before I go any further. No? Everybody here works in quality engineering, testing, or a vendor that does something with us, is that right? Yep, 100%? You'll sign on a dotted line? Yeah? Okay, good. Brilliant. Right, the business, they think different. Or do they? Do they actually think different? Or do they just actually look at things through a different lens? We're all very, very interested and passionate about the quality of products that we're working with. The business, what is it that they're actually interested in? Let's look at a few of those things that, you know, actually the way in which they might think about something and what's important to them. And I want you all to think about, whilst these are coming up on the screen, how the work that you do impacts these things, right? Imagine yourself in a board meeting or in a senior leadership team meeting with EGMs, GMs, and they're trying to make decisions about where the business is going to go, what money they're going to spend, and what's happening, all right? Think about these things. Impact to the bottom line. How does IT and the things that we do and the programs that we produce and the software that we engineer, how does that affect revenue, profitability, or cost savings, yeah? That kind of stuff. Risk mitigation. Identifying and minimizing the potential IT-related risks, cyber attacks, data breaches, system downtime. Reputational damage. Negative publicity, loss of customer trust due to IT-related incidents or poor quality. Anybody want to name an incident that happened relatively recently that might fall into that category? That's right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, very much. Governance. Ensuring that the IT is actually doing what it's supposed to do. It's aligning to, to business standards and policies. Regulatory compliance, big one nowadays. I think it's always been there. I saw Teak again today after 6 or 7 years. He and I used to work together for a very large trading organisation back in London. Regulatory compliance was a big thing in that organisation. We were doing commodities trading. Half of the business was unregulated, half of it was. We were basically putting things together with an elastic band just to get it across the line with the regulators, right, so they didn't get fined. This is more prevalent nowadays in the banking industry, especially in Australia, which I'm going to go into a little bit around about private information in data. Yeah? People are starting to get fined for it. People are starting to get threatened of losing banking licenses. Very big subject in the boardroom. What is it that we do every day in our jobs that can affect that? Data quality and integrity. Maintaining accurate and complete and secure data sets. Again, that word secure leads into security. I think that one probably speaks for itself, but we are constantly under attack from cyber attacks, data breaches, unauthorized access, all of those kind of things. Performance and efficiency. So how do we optimize the IT resources, speed and scalability? How do we do more for less? How do we in our organization stop becoming a blocker and actually start enabling the business to be able to generate that revenue that they want to go out and do, yeah? Make the business more profitable. And then the last one I'm going to pull up is return on investment. Everything that we do has to work out financially. There has to be a benefit for the business to be able to operate. Money doesn't grow on trees, unfortunately, and we do have to, as every single business, actually generate revenue to survive. The things that we're doing are supposed to help that. So that was just a little bit of context of how potentially the business, as we call them, ooh, scary business, through the curtain, those people over there, how they might be looking at the stuff that we do day in and day out, but from a different lens. So what is it that we need to do when we want to do really good quality engineering and really good testing to appeal to some of these things? And this is not an exhaustive list. Obviously, there's a lot of other things that you could add in there. So here's a slide that a lot of you have probably seen before, recognized in some shape or form. A maturity curve, quality engineering maturity curve. Starting off, quality control, kind of down the bottom. Some of these kind of functions, manual functional testing, probably no repetition, no test automation, lack of metrics, minimal use of tools. Moving into quality assurance, a bit more of a proactive approach. So you've got test automation in some areas. You've got some form of dashboarding, some kind of metrics set up. You've got some kind of traceability. You've probably got environment management, and you've expanded your coverage. You're actually starting to test a little bit more of the business process, and you might be doing some non-functional testing as well. Moving into a little bit more of a shift left approach and real quality engineering. So you're automating first. You've got a tool set, a tool chain defined. You're possibly using CI/CD. You've got performance engineering, proper real defect in an incident RCA, so you know why something's gone wrong, where it's gone wrong, and what it is that you need to change in your process. And potentially you've got release data and environment management. Moving up, further up the curve into a bit more of a DevOps approach, translating all of that into continuous testing. And then really that nirvana status, moving into that cognitive approach, optimal quality engineering, fully embraced tool sets. You've got predictive quality, the self-healing capabilities and the tools that you're using, and you've got real business-driven dashboards. What I mean by that is you can understand exactly what the business process is across the organizations at any given point, and you're able to predict quality across that. Show of hands. Where do you all think you are in your organizations? Be honest. Who's up there? Who's up number 5? Let's call it number 5. Anybody on that? Good. I'm glad nobody put their hand up for that one. Number 4. DevOps approach. Yeah? Yeah? That's good. That's great. Go on, Rob, stick your hand up. I know you want it. Number 3, shift left approach, quality engineering. So a few more hands going up now. That's good. Excellent. Number 2, proactive approach. I would expect the majority of the hands in the audience to go up around about that. And number 1, anybody down in that space there? If you are, come and see me later. I've got some great things we can go and talk about. Okay, so yeah. What's the cost of moving to the right? Yeah. So if we're saying that the majority of the people are really in 2 and 3, potentially some in 1, maybe some touching into 4, what's the cost of actually moving to number 4 and number 5? How do we quantify that cost? Is it worth doing? How would you sell that to a business that you wanted to get there? Is it worth it for the business? Does it need to? How are you identifying risk? All of these things. What's the sweet spot? Where's the sweet spot in your business across this scale? And I think the first thing for me to say here is it's not prescriptive. I don't know what it is in your business. There's so many variables, yeah? These are the kind of questions that I want you to take away and think about where you should be to get the best return for your stakeholders. And how do we apply this in a modern world where we're saturated with SaaS products? Yeah, somebody had that great idea about a subscription. Now everything is subscription, and it's all in the cloud apparently. And we have to take releases when the vendor says. Yeah, so this is a very, very good example going back to my old Mercury qualifications. Everything was on-prem. You had some CDs or a USB stick. That was how you kind of installed things long time ago. And you took the releases as and when your organization thought that was relevant because you needed to upgrade. Completely round the other way now. The software vendors are in charge. They push out releases, and they say in your license agreement you can only be one major release behind, or whatever it's going to be for whatever organization. The point being, they're pushing out those releases frequently on a high level of cadence, and your organizations have got to be ready to be able to accept those releases in an integrated environment, turn around to your major stakeholders and say, yes, you, Mr. Business, that's scary people through the curtain, are still going to be able to make the money that you need to make, yeah? So where is that sweet spot, and how much is that going to cost? What do we consider is good, and how do you actually get there? How do you create the roadmap to say, this is what we're saying is good for our business, this is how we're going to get there, yeah? And how do you leverage new technologies to help you get there? We're lucky in a way in our industry that it's been ever evolving for quite a long time. You know, Agile's been around for, I don't know, probably 25 years now as principles, maybe even longer, yeah? Still to find anywhere that's doing it really well, but that's not really the problem of Agile. That's probably more to do with the actual business constraints that it's trying to work within. We've been ever evolving all the way through. Automated testing has ever evolved. It's gone from, you know, large monolithic applications to completely open source. Now we've got enterprise grade applications coming back into the mix again, yeah? All of these things are ever evolving, but where I do feel we're at right now with technology is kind of technology has caught up to a little bit of the mantra that we've been talking about in this whole quality engineering shift left and the DevOps approach. A lot of this has been just conversation and talk. We've never actually really had tool sets, or we've attempted to use tool sets to help us on that journey, but quite often they've ended up hindering us. So how do we use innovation to push us up that curve as well? That's something else to think about. So I think these are all really, really interesting questions about what we do and what's right and what's not right and what's the sweet spot for us in our companies and where we're working. And that's what we're going to look at now in terms of what we did with the bank, right? So banks. Does anybody work for a bank? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Quite a few of you. Right, okay. Banks always got money. Never want to spend it. Never want to spend it. Certainly not on their own internal stuff, yeah? I guess that's why they're a bank. Go figure. So, what was QE transformation? Big title, yeah? What was the catalyst to be able to actually go into an organization and say, I'm going to transform your QE? Just like that. Okay, so what was it? For us, it was like, how did all this start? What was the journey that we took them on? It was a test process review, believe it or not. Yep. One of the most boring documents known to man, yeah? A test process review. It's closely followed by a TCR, a test completion report. If you want to go to sleep or you've got insomnia, go read the last one that came out your organization. It's going to send you to sleep straight away. Yes, so one of the most boring documents known to man was the catalyst for what's turned into to be quite an amazing transformation, actually. So what we did. So it really enabled us to gain some amazing analysis, some great data, and some really good insights, okay? The data really showed to us, and it reinforced a lot of opinions and suspicions of what was happening actually within the bank, yeah? We looked outside of the bank. We looked outside of the box. We didn't just look at the standard quality engineering software delivery lifecycle things that you do in a test process review, because all that needs to be done as well. But we also thought outside of the box, yeah? So we looked at what was really important to them across all those different business units. What is important right now? How does that align to the strategy of the bank? Where is it going? It's not a broad brush, yeah? Not all levels of quality engineering are right for all areas of an organization. Go back to that maturity curve. You might want something that's at number 4. Some of it you might not care if it's at number 1. Yeah? That's the important thing. You've got to remember that. So what was important? What's aligned to the bank's strategy? How was quality engineering affecting that right now in either a positive or a negative way? Yeah? These are the kind of questions and thoughts that we were looking at. And where were the delays? Where were things taking more time? Time equals money. This is a bank. They have lots of money. They don't want to spend it. Yeah? Remember that, going back to how the business thinks about things. Where were those delays within that software engineering cycle, which could be attributed to quality engineering, that we could look at and go, we can help you fix that. So with all that insight and data and analysis, we were able to show the bank a really compelling story. Yeah? This is why you need to go on a quality engineering transformation. This is the benefits it's going to give to your business. This is why it's important. This is how it's aligned to your strategy. Along with that, we were able to, with that story, it was able to give the story really of some real action, required action that needed to happen. That's got to be the catalyst for actually getting anything done. Has anybody actually done test process reviews or anything similar to that within their organizations? 1, 2, just any kind of review? Of course you have, Rob. And how many times have you actually had real action come out from it? Yeah. The most boring document known to man. Repeat, right? Just remember that. So, the business. Yes, those horrible people through the curtain, remember them? How do we translate all of that data, that insight, that knowledge, that information that we've got, which we think is aligned to them, into actually a compelling story for themselves? And it has to be meaningful. And they're the ones that are going to pay for this, yeah? They're the ones that also think differently to us. So remember back to those items that they may be thinking about. All of that's relevant to quality engineering, but they're looking at it from a different lens. So we followed a relatively simple 3-step process. The first one really was to translate the narrative, yeah? The narrative of best practice quality engineering into something which was more business value aligned to their business needs. So how does it align to their strategy? What's actually meaningful to them? Yeah? Then you've got to be able to demonstrate the real compelling benefits and the risk mitigation that it's going to give them, especially in a bank. Risk. It's a big word. Everybody should really, really think about it. And then deliver a roadmap of actions to actually deliver that value over time, so actually show that, how you're going to do that, and then be able to implement that, create the plan that underlines this. So that was the relatively simple 3-step process that we took, but I can absolutely guarantee you it's anything but simple. Yeah? It was one of the hardest things that we've ever had to do, and it took months. It took months to be able to pull all this information together, to be able to present it back to them in a fashion that they actually found compelling. And it took an awful lot of iterations as well. So I just want to go straight into, this is actually taken out of a bit more of a case study slide, but what were the key drivers? So these are some of the things that we actually found within that analysis and data as some of the key areas that were immediately up for fixing. Inadequate test coverage, unquantified risk, multiple tools across automation, and that's all different types of automation, not just functional. Very siloed ways of working. Production data in test. I'm going to keep on coming back to that one, but production data in test. A lack of test data, environment and release processes, policies, practices. No enterprise test governance. And a reliance on vendor frameworks. Okay, what do I mean by that? So, reliance on vendor frameworks. They had partnered with a couple of large vendors previously. Those large vendors had come in, done some form of not only automation framework, but also whole testing framework with no knowledge transfer or even explanation, I guess, to a certain degree. And it left the bank 100% reliant on those processes being followed by that vendor. Yeah, the lock-in strategy. Yeah, ex-IBM know it well. I work with a lot of people who are ex-Capgemini. They know it well. Yeah, that's how it works. That's how large consultancies work. Anybody feel that they have these ways within their organizations at the moment? Do any of these sound familiar? Yeah. Certainly is. I mean, like I say, in over 25 years of doing this, I've come across these kind of things time and time and time again in organizations. It just happens. It's the way it does, unless you get some of the things that we're going to talk about shortly. But I just want to look at some of the direct benefits that we've been seeing. So we've had a 50% increase in coverage. 50% of what? There you go, that's the question. Inadequate test coverage, unquantified risk, multiple tool automation, siloed ways of working. 50% increase in coverage. By combining that, by looking at things holistically across the 3 areas which were being merged within this organization, we were able to produce that kind of a number. It's a bit of a statement number, and I don't know if it actually means that much in terms of just what it is. But the benefits that's given the bank is they now feel more confident about the level of quality that's being executed on a daily basis, because we're able to report back via metrics and dashboards that the right thing is being tested at the right time. And I think that's where the big difference is in that one. 60% faster delivery. This one really came down to a very, very, very siloed way of working and using multiple tool sets and not having the right data, and actually quite a lot of repetition. Yeah? So we were able to condense the length of time that it actually took to do something within any given cycle. A lot of that was due to automation of regression packs, which wasn't there before, API automation, and service virtualization. Yeah? Very, very easy wins. There's lots of conversations going on in other tracks at the moment and a lot more detail about how that can actually be achieved, and it's not that difficult when you apply the right thinking to it and actually realize where your risk is and go after that. And $10 million saving in SDLC. A lot of this has come out of the environment space, yeah? Environments and data. The cost of environments just being up and running all the time rather than being spun down properly. Leveraging the right tool sets to actually manage that correctly in a cloud-based organization. Some pretty hard-hitting numbers. I'm not going to go into them too much right now, but that's roughly where we are at this very moment. Just going to talk a little bit about how we did this. And you know, as I've been alluding to, this is actually a journey that's still happening. Yeah, and it's and to be absolutely honest, it's not been easy. As I mentioned about the whole test process review, it's been quite painful. There's been a lot of to and froing, and it certainly hasn't been smooth, but we're getting there. And probably the most important thing to talk about is actually how we gained that momentum. So we spoke about the catalyst, the start, the test process review, the being able to translate that into some form of business language that they understood. And then we took them on the journey to say, right, this is the plan that we're going to have, how we're going to deliver this value to your organization over a period of time. Really, that came from talking to the right people, talking to the right stakeholders, engaging with the right stakeholders in the bank, and actually linking what it was that we were doing directly to their needs. Now, I think this is probably some of the most important things I want to try and get across today, and I want to really make people walk away thinking about this. We're all testers at a conference where we've got a lot of amazing test tools being shown, etc., and you know that's kind of, and we're all trying to learn something. And it's great to think about the tools and the way in which we do things. But I think what's more important as us as a community is thinking about how we demonstrate our value back up through the organizations that we work for, yeah? You've got to have the right people in the organization listening to what it is that you're saying. Now, to be able to make that happen, you've got to be telling a compelling story. Yeah? And you've got to be in with the right stakeholders. And the only way that you're going to be able to get that message across to the right stakeholders is to make it relevant to them in their language with something that they are tasked with doing within your organization. Yeah? You've got to have the right stakeholders. You've got to have that top-down buy-in. Yeah? This was an overall transformation. It's pretty big. It was never something that was just going to be from the ground up. It had to be top-down. It had to be sponsored. Point one leads into point two leads into point one. You get that top-down buy-in, it gives you the vehicle to be able to do that transformation within your organizations. It's nearly impossible, I would say, to succeed without that. One of the key things that we've done is we've established communities of practice, and we've developed enterprise-wide strategies across those areas. So that's very much focused on test automation, test data management, and release and environment management, yeah, across those three areas. There is an overarching strategy that really focuses on quality engineering as a whole, i.e. what types of testing should you do where and when, according to the different methodologies that are being used across the whole enterprise. As I said, it's not a broad brush. It's very, very varied. And then we have that overall quality engineering strategy being governed by somebody who actually works for the bank, and it's their responsibility to effectively enforce that. Some of the other things that we've been really looking at, and I think this is really, really important. People, processes, and tools. Don't forget the tools, right? An enterprise-wide set of testing tools can actually, that are easy to use, for a start, and leverage the latest AI enhancements, they can really drive efficiencies and standardization. And using the right tool in the right place for the right purpose is going to help all of that, yeah? It's going to drive a lot of those things that we were talking about on the slide with the business before, yeah? There is a right time and a right place for an enterprise-wide test tool. There is also the wrong time and the wrong place for it, yeah? And that's individual and unique to each one of your organizations. And that's something you all need to think about how that's going to be applied. Automate first. It's very easy to say. It's very difficult to do, yeah? It's about changing a culture. Yeah, it's about making people think that they actually potentially need to write a piece of code differently to enable it for automation. Yeah? It's about thinking about tool sets. It's about thinking about tool chains. It's about thinking about CI/CD. It's about thinking about a different delivery methodology, potentially moving into BDD, or God forbid anybody goes near TDD again. Automate first. Nowadays, as I said, with certain tool sets, I think we've caught up to a lot of what we've been talking about for the last 20 years, especially around about APIs and service virtualization. Really good presentation from Blazemeter in the other room just before lunch. There are the tools out there that can make this kind of thing happen relatively simply in comparison to all the fudging together of everything that we had to do on the beginning of this journey. Yeah? Utilize the right thing at the right place. I think that's very important. Processes we've kind of spoken about. The other one really that we shouldn't forget about is people. You've got to have the right people, yeah? People are going to come on this journey with you. It's all very well me stood up here and, spouting on about this wonderful journey we took a bank on, but you guys all here would be sat there in the squads actually delivering this stuff. You've got to believe in it as well. You've got to actually say, you know what, I think this is right. I think we are delivering the right thing. I'm still able to use my passion for quality engineering, but I'm actually able to do some really good for the bank because of the manner in which I'm delivering it. I'm being given the opportunity to do that. So don't forget about the people. Don't forget about having the right size squads with the right technical leaders. Not everybody needs to be a technical leader. Not everybody needs to be the best that they can be within their given field. You're always going to have people at the top of a pyramid, and then everyone else is there to learn, quite frankly. Build your squads right, build your pyramids correctly, get those young, enthusiastic people in there to learn from the senior leaders. We found that that's been a really, really important leverage for us. I've got some other notes here really just about automate, automate, automate. Just automate, just do it. Big point for me, really, really important. Underlying foundation for the success of this whole transformation. Test data management, release and environment management strategies. When we walked in, we did that test process review. There's a few words I could use to describe this. One of them would be not there, and then there's a few which are a little bit more explicit than that. Absolutely terrible, yeah. And there are a lot of organizations out there that don't really have anything across test data management and release and environment management. The organization we're talking about was particularly bad at this because it's an amalgamation of 3 very big organizations already, and they all did things very differently. But really, thinking about test data management, thinking about release and environment management, and going back to one of those things that the business is really, really concerned about, production data, not in production. Anywhere in a non-production environment, we found so much of it, yeah? And we've had to utilize tool sets to be able to get that out. They've been threatened with fines, they've been threatened with various other things, but this is really, really important in the market at the moment. It's really important in our industry that we know and understand what data we're using, when we're using it, and is it the right thing to do. Companies and people who sit on boards, they're liable for this. They're the ones that could get the fines, yeah? Not us, but it's our job to be able to tell them where this is and what is the strategy for fixing it. So we completely redesigned those release and environment processes. We've introduced a whole new tool set across the whole bank now to be able to deal with data masking. That tool set also can do virtualizing and compression of data for cost efficiencies. Remember going back to that thing about stuff being in the cloud, you don't want 15 gigabytes of data sat there to do your testing when you only need 100 meg if you're doing some functional testing, for instance. And also the ability to use AI to actually synthesize the test data. There's a variety of tools out there that can do this. Depends on what your tool set of choice is. We partnered with Innovate to be able to do this from the data masking and data subsetting perspective. And then in terms of synthesizing test data on the fly, test automation tools. There's a lot of them out there that now can actually do that. They can read the screens, they can understand what data it is you need, you can have some reference data in there, and then it can populate it for you, yeah? Thinking about how you actually do that, looping that into your test data management and release environment strategy gives you a great win. It not only gives you efficiencies, yeah, it saves you time, but it also gives you that confidence that you're using the right data sets at the right point, and the ability to be able to recreate those data sets. Yeah, so an example is we have a finesse database that we want to grab, we want to mask that, so we take that out from production, take a live production copy, do some profiling on that database, it finds all of the PI data within it, it masks all of that data, all of those different fields, you then have a golden copy of data, right? You can now do what you wish with that copy of data. You can subset it, you can reduce its size, you can add to it, you can slice and dice it, you can say I want to do some time shift testing, so I want to change some dates in there. You can go in and do those kind of things as well. Yeah? Really important. Manipulation of data and the tool set that you use to manage that, else it can get out of hand. So this was a real big win for us. How many times have people here been involved in testing where you've been left scrambling for test data at the last minute? Would you say that's fair? Yeah? How many times have you gone to do your testing and the environment's not there, or you can't get access, or it hasn't got that bit installed, or it's not connected to that? All of those kind of things, they're all blockers. It all goes back to that stuff that the business is looking at, going, God, why is testing taking so long? Yeah? We've got to make these things simpler. We've got to make it easier. It's all within our control, and I really do feel that quite often enterprise-wide test strategies don't include this enough. Yeah? It's not right there at the very head of it. It's kind of either tacked in on the bottom or it's somebody else's responsibility. I don't believe that should be the case. I believe it should be absolutely the responsibility of every quality engineering organization. These two things. Okay, right, so I'm going to take you back to the maturity curve. So where do I think we are in this journey that we're on? I'm going to be honest. I think we're only just about here and we're starting to touch some areas in this. I think we've got a long way to go. If that's where we want to go. Do we need to go further? Yeah? Do we need to go for that number 4 and number 5 up there? What's the cost of that? What's the benefit? Have we sat down with the business and really understood where that risk sits? It's a good question. Should we actually push that further? Will the bank actually pay for it? Will they sponsor that? Are the returns actually worth it? I think potentially it is in some areas within the organization that we're specifically working in. I think that's something you guys need to take away and think about your organizations and whether it's worth it for you, yeah? I think where it really gets interesting is, again, this doesn't need to be prescriptive. If you're able to get automated data creation and do some continuous testing in certain areas of your organization, but other parts are down here maybe just doing a small bit of very, very basic test automation, that might be 100% right for your organization. Yeah? Think about that. Think about the different areas and the different levels that you might want to get to. How can we use tools to help us get down that right-hand side? How can we use all the new AI-infused tools that we've got out there nowadays to actually make that happen? Who's the tool vendors who can help you with that? Yeah? How much are you doing by yourself? Is anybody actually experimenting using AI internally, using any of the LLMs? What's been your experience so far with that? Mixed. Yeah.
The lower down you go, the more successful it is.
Yep.
The more complexity it is.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I know there are some people in the room I've been talking to today and in this building today who have, they're going pretty hardcore on this. They're actually creating their own applications to be able to help with stuff. Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation. That's kind of where I'm going next, actually. So, AI in testing, the future. It's a big buzzword. Yeah, it's the biggest buzzword of the year so far, I would say, potentially of the last year, not just this year. But is its star actually waning? Yeah. Have we found a use for it, or is it actually a solution looking for a problem? I'm not saying I have the answer. I, up until the beginning of this year, led the quality engineering practice for IBM. IBM has been involved in artificial intelligence for the last 15, 20 years. It had Watson, which it released to the market over 10 years ago, which is being used roundly in an awful lot of organizations out there, very much in the medical sense and scientific places. Yeah, it jumped on Gen AI, literally. Yeah, it literally diverted the whole business. Gen AI, go out there, figure out some problems we can use this for. I'm not entirely sure it's sold very much so far. Yeah, and I think that's the same around everybody. What is the problem that we're actually looking to fix? That's generalistic. That's a little bit bigger. That's industry-wide. That's kind of IT technology-wide. Within our space, within quality engineering, I think there are some real things that we can use it for. Yeah? Going back to how the business thinks. Yeah? What is it that one of the major things that they're going to be looking for is efficiencies and effectiveness. So the first thing, I want to say about this, AI is here to stay. It's not going to go anywhere. Billions of dollars have been invested into this. We need to embrace it, and we need to figure out how to use it and where it's actually purposeful. And that's probably the next thing that I'm going to talk about. Let it do the heavy lifting. A lot of our job, going back to that point, is boring. Who wants to sit down and write some test cases from some requirements? Anybody? No? Right, but that's part of our job. Yeah, that's part of what we have to do as testers. We have to take requirements, translate them into use cases, and write some tests. AI can help us with that. It can do a lot of the heavy lifting. It's not going to do it all. It's not going to be perfect, and you have to go in and look at it. Yeah, you have to go back and say, right, okay, well, this is what it's given me. Does that make sense? You're the one with the real brain. Yeah, that's just trying to help you. So let it help you do some of that heavy lifting. That's one use case in where you can do that. Data is another big space that it can really, really help in. Synthesization of data, being able to chop that up, slice and dice it, create what you need, and also work with some pretty complex problems of how to create that data in banking and trading scenarios. Efficiency gains is really where I'm going with on that. The last one I think I just want to leave with you. It's an interesting comment, right? AI won't take your jobs. It never will do. Right? Because our brains are always going to be required. Going back to the original point, we're a passionate bunch who think differently to everybody else. Yeah, it's not them thinking differently, it's us, unfortunately, if you didn't get that from the whole story. But the tester who is using AI might take your job. It's an interesting little thing to think of, isn't it? Yeah, you've got to embrace these technologies. You've really got to learn how to use them to the best of your ability and their ability. At the same time, remembering why you're in the career you're in. All right, so we've got a quiz question. This is for a $50 voucher. What tool set are we using for TDM and REMS? There we go. Done. Congratulations. Thank you. That's that.